Millionaire had her cat saved by a homeless boy, and what she did left everyone surprised. Homeless boy used his last coins to save the millionaire's cat, and she. Emma Prescott gazed out the floor-to-ceiling windows of her Boston penthouse, the city lights twinkling below like the stars she could no longer see through the urban glow. At 30, she had everything money could buy: the successful AI tech company she built from scratch, the stunning apartment, designer clothes, and exotic vacations she rarely had time to take. Yet as she absently stroked Gatsby, her pedigree Persian cat with fur as white as snow, she felt the familiar emptiness creeping in. "At least you're loyal," she whispered to the purring feline. "You never let me down like people do." Gatsby was more than a pet. In the 2 years since her divorce, he had become her confidant, her companion in the silent penthouse that felt too large despite its perfect interior design. The cat stretched lazily on her lap, completely unaware that he was the emotional anchor for one of Boston's youngest tech millionaires. Her phone buzzed with a calendar reminder: International Investors Call, 8 p.m. Emma sighed, gently moving Gatsby to the plush custom cat bed nearby. The storm clouds gathering outside matched her mood as she straightened her silk blouse and prepared for another evening of work. "Ms. Prescott, the Tokyo team is ready to connect," her assistant's voice came through the intercom. "And Mr. Barnes from London is already online. They're waiting for you to start the presentation." "I'll be right there, Julia," Emma replied, her voice instantly shifting to the confident, controlled tone she used for business. That transition had become second nature, the mask of the capable CEO falling seamlessly into place, hiding the woman who sometimes cried alone at night. As Emma settled at her home office desk, arranging her presentation materials on multiple screens, her phone lit up with a name she had been trying to forget: Daniel. Her ex-husband's message was brief: "Need to discuss the final property settlement. Call me." A flash of anger tightened her chest. Daniel had been her college sweetheart, the one person she had trusted completely, until she discovered his affair with her former best friend. The betrayal had done more than end their marriage, it had convinced Emma that success and independence were the only reliable companions. Thunder rumbled in the distance as she dismissed the notification and connected to the video call, where 5 expectant faces appeared on her screen. She smiled her perfect business smile, pushing thoughts of Daniel away. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining across so many time zones. Today I'm excited to share our latest advancements in predictive customer service AI." As Emma launched into her presentation, she didn't notice the slightly open balcony door behind her, left ajar when she had stepped out earlier for fresh air. Nor did she notice Gatsby's ears perking up at the sound of a bird sheltering from the approaching storm on her balcony ledge. The cat's curious eyes followed the movement outside, his tail flicking with interest. While Emma confidently answered questions about market penetration and ROI projections, Gatsby silently padded toward the opening, a small gap into a world beyond the golden cage they both inhabited. The first drops of rain began to fall as the curious cat slipped through the opening, stepping onto the wet balcony tiles. The bird fluttered away in panic, and Gatsby, excited by the movement, leapt onto the wide concrete railing, suddenly mesmerized by the expansive, rain-soaked city below. A powerful gust of wind made the Persian cat lose his balance. In an instant, Gatsby disappeared over the edge, making a desperate leap toward a nearby decorative ledge rather than falling directly to the street below. Inside, completely unaware of the unfolding drama, Emma continued her presentation. 20 blocks away, Logan Hayes huddled under the Jefferson Street Bridge, trying to stay dry as the rain intensified. At 20, his home consisted of a worn sleeping bag, a backpack containing his few possessions, and a blue tarp he'd found in a dumpster that now served as his roof. Despite his circumstances, Logan maintained a quiet dignity, keeping himself as clean as possible at public restrooms and the homeless shelter he occasionally visited. Just 6 months ago, he had been a promising veterinary student at Boston University, his professors often commenting on his natural talent with animals. That life seemed like a distant dream now. The car accident that claimed both his parents had left him with crushing medical and funeral debts. With no other family to help, he'd been forced to drop out of school, sell everything, and still wound up on the streets when the money ran out. Logan emptied his pockets, carefully counting the coins he'd collected from returning bottles and doing odd jobs, $3.27. Enough for a cheap meal tomorrow, but not much else. He tucked the money back into his pocket, a small treasure that represented survival for another day. Hey, college boy. Still studying those coins like they're gonna multiply? Logan looked up to see Mike, an older homeless man who slept under the same bridge, approaching with his characteristic limp. Just planning for tomorrow, Logan replied with a small smile. Well, better get comfortable. Weather app on the library computer says this storm's gonna be a mean one, Mike said, settling into his own makeshift shelter a few feet away. Logan nodded, pulling his tarp tighter as the wind picked up. He tried not to think about how different his life had been before, the warm apartment he'd shared with his roommate, the campus library where he'd spent hours studying animal anatomy, the small veterinary clinic where he'd interned. Now his knowledge of medicine and animal care seemed useless, a painful reminder of dreams deferred. Earlier that day, he'd walked past his old university building, watching students hurry to class with their backpacks and coffee cups. For a moment, he'd spotted Professor Winters, his favorite teacher, who had looked at him with a mixture of pity and awkwardness before hurrying inside. The encounter had left a bitter taste in Logan's mouth. Your application looks promising, but we require a permanent address for employment, a coffee shop manager had told him that afternoon, his fifth rejection of the week. The cycle seemed impossible to break. Thunder boomed overhead as Logan wrapped his arms around his knees. His stomach growled, but he ignored it, knowing he needed to save his money. The rain began falling harder, drumming against his tarp as the storm settled over Boston. Miles away in her luxury penthouse, Emma was finishing her investor call when she noticed something was wrong. The apartment felt too quiet. Usually, Gatsby would be weaving between her legs by now, demanding attention. Gatsby, she called, suddenly alert. Kitty, where are you? Emma scanned the living room, kitchen, and bedroom, her heart beginning to race. When she noticed the balcony door slightly ajar, a cold fear washed over her. No, 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 she whispered, rushing to the balcony and looking over the edge into the rain-soaked darkness. Gatsby. Without hesitation, Emma grabbed her coat and keys, abandoning her open laptop with the investors still connected. Nothing mattered now except finding her beloved cat. Ms. Prescott? Are you still there? A voice called from her computer as she slammed the apartment door behind her. As Emma rushed to the elevator, tears mixing with determination, Logan was startled by a faint sound underneath a parked car near his bridge shelter. Crawling closer to investigate, he discovered a white Persian cat, soaking wet and trembling, its paw bleeding slightly where it had scraped against something sharp. Hey there, Logan said softly, his veterinary instincts taking over. You look like you're a long way from home. The cat meowed weakly, its blue eyes wide with fear. Logan looked at the shivering animal, then at the coins in his pocket. The decision he was about to make would change both their lives forever. Come on, little one. Let's get you some help, he whispered, gently picking up the injured cat. Logan cradled the soaking wet Persian cat against his chest, trying to shield it from the relentless downpour. The animal was shivering violently, its matted white fur clinging to a frame that felt frighteningly fragile in his hands. Years of veterinary training told him the cat was suffering from the early stages of hypothermia and needed immediate attention. You must belong to someone, Logan murmured, noticing the expensive jeweled collar partially hidden beneath the wet fur. Some rich family is probably looking for you right now. For a moment, a bitter thought crossed his mind. Maybe he could find the owner and get a reward, enough for a warm meal and perhaps a night in a cheap motel. The fantasy lasted only seconds before shame replaced it. The cat needed help now, this wasn't about money. Still, doubt crept in as Logan stood in the rain, conflicted. What if someone saw him with this obviously expensive cat and accused him of stealing it? With his ragged appearance, who would believe his story? He'd heard about homeless people being arrested for far less. I should just take you to the shelter in the morning, he reasoned, looking down at the trembling animal. They can find your owner. The cat let out a pained mew and Logan's professional instincts kicked in again. The bleeding paw, the labored breathing, the dropping body temperature, morning might be too late. Logan glanced at the coins in his palm. His entire food budget for tomorrow. If he spent this now, he would go hungry, but he couldn't ignore an animal in distress. Not after all those years of training to save them. This is a bad idea, he muttered, tucking the cat carefully inside his jacket. But I guess we're both having a rough night, huh? Rain pounded against his shoulders as Logan began walking toward the all-night veterinary clinic 8 blocks away. He'd visited it once during his university days for a field trip. The memory felt like it belonged to someone else's life. Meanwhile, Emma was frantically searching the streets surrounding her building, her designer shoes splashing through puddles as she called Gatsby's name. Her hair, usually perfectly styled, hung in wet strands around her face. She didn't care. Nothing mattered except finding her cat. "Excuse me," she called to a passing couple huddled under an umbrella. "Have you seen a white Persian cat? He's got blue eyes and a crystal collar." The couple shook their heads sympathetically before hurrying on. Emma had already asked 6 people with the same result. Panic clawed at her chest as she imagined Gatsby injured or worse. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, remembering the microchip she'd had implanted in Gatsby after adopting him. The tracking app showed his last known location was still in her apartment building, but that couldn't be right. Unless... A horrible thought struck her. If Gatsby had fallen from the balcony, the chip would still register at the building's location. Emma leaned against a wet wall, momentarily overwhelmed by the possibility. "No," she whispered fiercely. "He's alive. I'd know if he wasn't." With renewed determination, she expanded her search radius, mentally cataloging every veterinary clinic in the area. If someone found Gatsby injured, they'd take him to a vet. She had to start calling around. As Emma formulated her plan, Logan arrived at Boston Night Vets, a small clinic with bright fluorescent lighting that made him squint after the darkness outside. He hesitated at the entrance, suddenly acutely aware of his appearance, soaked clothes, unshaven face, the distinctive look of someone who lived on the streets. Through the window, he could see a woman at the reception desk, her expression bored as she scrolled through her phone. Logan knew how this would go. She'd see him and immediately be suspicious, maybe even call security. The cat shivered against his chest, letting out another weak meow. "Hang in there, buddy," Logan whispered, finding courage in the animal's need. "They can't turn you away, even if they want to turn me away." Taking a deep breath, Logan pushed open the door, the warm air inside feeling almost painful against his cold skin. The receptionist looked up, her expression quickly shifting from boredom to wariness. "Can I help you?" she asked, her hand moving subtly toward the phone. "This cat needs help," Logan said, carefully revealing the wet Persian. "I found him under a car. He's hypothermic and has an injured paw." The receptionist's eyes widened at the sight of the obviously expensive cat in the hands of someone who looked like he couldn't afford to feed himself, let alone a Persian. "Where exactly did you find this cat?" she asked, suspicion evident in her voice. Logan straightened his shoulders, pulling on the last remnants of his former identity, the confident veterinary student with a promising future. "Near Jefferson Bridge. He's hypothermic, likely has a sprained or fractured front left paw, and needs immediate care," he replied with quiet authority. "I have no money and I'm not the owner. I just couldn't leave him to suffer." Something in his knowledgeable assessment made the receptionist hesitate. Before she could respond, a door opened and a woman in a white coat appeared. "What's going on, Tina?" the veterinarian asked, her eyes quickly taking in the scene. "Dr. Mendez, this man brought in a Persian cat. Says he found it on the street," the receptionist explained, her tone making it clear what she thought about Logan's story. Dr. Sarah Mendez approached with a professional calm that came from years of emergency veterinary work. She was in her mid-40s with warm brown eyes and hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Unlike the receptionist, she focused immediately on the animal rather than the person holding it. "Let me see," she said, reaching for the cat. Logan carefully transferred the shivering Persian into her practiced hands. "He's showing signs of hypothermia. I found him hiding under a car near Jefferson Bridge. There's an injury to his left front paw, possibly a sprain or minor fracture based on how he was favoring it. No visible external bleeding except for a small abrasion on the pad." Dr. Mendez looked up sharply, surprised by the detailed assessment. Most people who found stray animals couldn't offer such a precise medical evaluation. "Are you in the field?" she asked, already carrying the cat toward the examination room. "I was a third-year veterinary student at BU before." Logan trailed off, gesturing vaguely at himself. "Life happened." The doctor nodded without judgment. "Well, your assessment seems spot on. Come back with me while we check him out." The receptionist frowned. "Dr. Mendez, should I call animal control?" "We don't know if Tina, check if this cat has a microchip while I examine him," Dr. Mendez interrupted. "And bring some dry towels for our good Samaritan here. He's soaking wet." Logan followed the veterinarian into the bright examination room, grateful for her professional focus. She worked efficiently, checking the cat's temperature and breathing while Logan stood awkwardly by the door. "His body temperature is 95 F, definitely hypothermic, but not critical yet." "You got him here just in time," she confirmed, gently examining the injured paw. "And you're right about the paw. Looks like a minor sprain, possibly from landing after a fall. No fractures that I can feel." The receptionist appeared with a scanner, running it over the cat's neck and shoulders. "He's chipped," she announced as the device beeped. "I'll look up the information." Dr. Mendez nodded, then turned her attention back to Logan. "You applied exactly the right first aid, keeping him warm against your body heat. Most people wouldn't know to do that." Logan shrugged. "Like I said, veterinary training." "How long have you been?" She hesitated, searching for a tactful word. "Homeless?" Logan finished for her. "About 6 months." The doctor continued her examination of the cat, but her eyes held new interest. "What was your specialty going to be?" "Small animal emergency medicine," Logan replied, a flash of his old passion briefly lighting his face. "I was particularly interested in trauma care. You know," Dr. Mendez said carefully, "we sometimes need help around here." "Nothing formal yet, but the receptionist interrupted, returning with a printout. "His name is Gatsby. Owner is Emma Prescott, lives in the Millennium Tower downtown. I've left a message on all her contact numbers." "Thank you, Tina," Dr. Mendez said, then turned to Logan. "We'll need to start treatment right away. For fluids to warm him up internally, pain management for the paw, and a thorough check for any other injuries." Logan nodded in agreement with the treatment plan, then hesitated. "How much will that cost?" "About $400 for emergency treatment," the receptionist supplied quickly, her tone suggesting she knew Logan couldn't afford it. "I don't have that kind of money," Logan admitted, though it was obviously unnecessary. "But I could work it off. I could help around the clinic cleaning, assisting with treatments, whatever you need." Dr. Mendez seemed to consider this for a moment. "Let's focus on treating Gatsby first. His owner will handle the bill when she arrives." The mention of the owner made Logan shift uncomfortably. "When she gets here, could you maybe not mention that I was? I mean, just tell her someone brought her cat in. People tend to make assumptions when they see someone like me with something valuable." Understanding crossed the veterinarian's face. "I'll tell her exactly what happened, that a trained professional found her cat and saved its life by bringing it in immediately." For the first time that night, Logan smiled slightly. It felt strange on his face, almost forgotten. "Thank you. Now, how about helping me set up this 4-line?" Dr. Mendez suggested. "If you're going to be hanging around waiting, might as well put those skills to use." For the next half hour, Logan assisted Dr. Mendez, falling easily into the familiar rhythms of veterinary medicine. His hands, despite being cold and rough from months on the street, moved with precise care as he helped stabilize Gatsby's temperature and treat his injuries. As they worked, Dr. Mendez observed Logan carefully. "You haven't forgotten your training," she noted. "Your technique with the fore placement was perfect." "Some things stick with you," Logan replied quietly, gently stroking Gatsby's fur as the fluids began to warm the cat from the inside. The animal's breathing had already improved, his eyes more alert as he looked curiously at his rescuer. The connection between them was interrupted by the reception phone ringing. Through the open door, they heard Tina's voice rise in recognition. "Yes, Ms. Prescott. We have Gatsby here." "Yes, he's stable. Someone brought him in about 30 minutes ago." Logan tensed, suddenly aware that his momentary return to his former world was about to end. In a few minutes, Gatsby's wealthy owner would arrive, and he would go back to being just another homeless person in her eyes, possibly even a suspicious one. "I should probably go," he said, moving toward the door. Dr. Mendez put a hand on his arm. "Stay. You've done nothing wrong, and I could use your help for a few more minutes." Her eyes held a kindness that made Logan hesitate. "Besides, there's hot coffee in the break room, and I suspect you could use some." The mention of something warm to drink was too tempting to resist. Logan nodded, following the doctor deeper into the clinic, away from the front door where soon, two worlds were about to collide. Emma Prescott burst through the doors of Boston Night Vets like a storm, her designer coat dripping rainwater onto the clean linoleum floor. Her usually perfect makeup was smudged, her hair plastered to her head, but her eyes were sharp with determination and fear. "Where's Gatsby?" she demanded, barely acknowledging the startled receptionist. "Is he okay?" Tina stood up, her earlier boredom completely gone. It wasn't every day that one of Boston's most successful young entrepreneurs showed up looking like she'd been through a hurricane. "Ms. Prescott, please calm down. Gatsby is stable and receiving treatment. Dr. Mendez is with him now." "Take me to him," Emma insisted, already moving toward the door that led to the examination rooms. Tina hurried around the desk. "Ma'am, I need you to fill out some paperwork first. Bill me whatever you need to. I'll pay double, triple, I don't care. I want to see my cat." Emma's voice broke slightly on the last word, revealing the raw emotion beneath her commanding exterior. The receptionist relented, leading Emma through the door. "This way. They're in room 2. Meanwhile, in the clinic's small break room, Logan was savoring his first hot cup of coffee in days. Dr. Mendez had left him there while she checked on another patient, promising to return once Gatsby's owner arrived. The warmth spreading through his hands from the ceramic mug felt almost as good as the brief return to his former professional identity. His moment of peace was interrupted by the sound of hurried footsteps and a woman's anxious voice approaching. Logan instinctively tensed, setting down his coffee and preparing to face judgment. Emma followed the receptionist to room 2, where Dr. Mendez was just returning. "Ms. Prescott? I'm Dr. Sarah Mendez. How is he? Can I see him?" Emma asked immediately. The veterinarian nodded, gesturing toward the examination table where Gatsby lay connected to a small four. The cat looked up at the sound of Emma's voice, his blue eyes brightening with recognition. "Gatsby." Emma rushed to the table, tears finally spilling over as she gently stroked her beloved pet. "Oh my God, I was so worried." Dr. Mendez gave her a moment with the cat before explaining. "He's doing well now. When he came in, he was hypothermic and had a sprained left paw, likely from a fall. We've warmed him up, provided pain medication, and treated the minor abrasion on his pad. All things considered, he's very lucky." Emma looked up, finally taking a proper breath. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done if..." She trailed off, unable to complete the thought. The receptionist said someone brought him in. "Do you know who?" "I'd like to thank them personally." Before Dr. Mendez could answer, the door opened and Logan appeared, having heard the conversation from the hallway. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, still damp from the rain, his worn clothes and unshaven face a stark contrast to the clean clinical environment. Emma's expression shifted instantly from gratitude to suspicion. Her eyes narrowed as she took in his disheveled appearance, her arms moving protectively closer to Gatsby. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice suddenly cold. Dr. Mendez stepped forward. "Ms. Prescott, this is Logan Hayes. He's the one who found Gatsby and brought him in for treatment." Emma's eyes darted between the homeless man and her expensive pedigree cat with its crystal-studded collar. Her Wall Street-trained brain quickly calculated the scenario, and she didn't like the equation. "Did you take my cat?" she demanded, years of business negotiations making her direct and confrontational. Logan bristled visibly. "Excuse me." "Emma," Dr. Mendez interjected, using her first name deliberately to break the tension. Logan found Gatsby sheltering under a car near Jefferson Bridge. The cat was already injured and suffering from exposure to the cold rain. He recognized the symptoms of hypothermia and brought him in immediately, probably saving his life. Emma wasn't convinced. "Jefferson Bridge is nearly 20 blocks from my building. How did Gatsby get all the way there unless someone took him?" Logan crossed his arms defensively. "Look, lady, I don't make a habit of stealing cats. Especially not in the middle of a thunderstorm. I found him injured and used my last $3 to buy some wet food to coax him out from under the car. Then I carried him 8 blocks in the pouring rain to get him help." "Your last $3? Emma repeated skeptically. Dr. Mendez placed a gentle hand on Emma's arm. "Ms. Prescott, Logan was a veterinary student before experiencing some difficult circumstances. His knowledge is the reason Gatsby received the perfect first aid before arriving here. He even assisted me with the treatment." Emma looked from the doctor to Logan, her certainty wavering. She glanced down at Gatsby, who was purring softly despite his ordeal, then back at the man who claimed to have rescued him. "If you were really trying to help, why did you look like you were about to leave when I arrived?" she challenged, having noticed his hesitation at the door. Logan's jaw tightened. "Because I knew exactly how this would go. One look at me, and you'd assume the worst. Which is exactly what happened." Emma had the grace to look slightly embarrassed, but her protective instincts remained on high alert. She'd built her success by being cautious, by questioning everything and everyone. "If you didn't take him for a reward, then why did you help? Most people would have just walked by." "Because I'm not most people," Logan replied simply. "And unlike some folks, I don't measure kindness by its potential return on investment." The pointed comment hit its mark. Emma flushed slightly, recognizing the criticism of her worldview. She looked down at Gatsby, now contentedly receiving her gentle pets, then back at the man who had saved him. "I'd like to offer a reward," she said finally, reaching for her purse. "It's the least I can do." Logan stepped back, his expression hardening. "Keep your money. I didn't help your cat to get paid." Emma blinked, unused to having her money refused. Before she could respond, the receptionist interrupted. "Dr. Mendez, the treatment bill is ready whenever Ms. Prescott would like to settle it." "Of course," Emma said automatically, grateful for the distraction. "I'll take care of that right now." As she followed the receptionist out, Emma cast one last confused glance at Logan, unable to fit him neatly into any category she understood. Outside, the storm continued to rage, a fitting backdrop to the emotional tempest brewing inside the small veterinary clinic. After settling Gatsby's treatment bill with her platinum card, Emma returned to the examination room to find Logan helping Dr. Mendez prepare a carrier for Gatsby's trip home. The sight of his careful, knowledgeable movements as he adjusted the bedding inside the carrier made her pause in the doorway. "He'll need to rest that paw for about a week," Logan was explaining to Dr. Mendez. "And the antibiotics should prevent any infection from the abrasion." "Exactly right," the veterinarian agreed. "I'm prescribing pain medication too, just for the next few days." Emma cleared her throat softly, and both turned to look at her. "Is he ready to go home?" Dr. Mendez nodded. Yes, but he'll need careful monitoring tonight. His temperature should stay stable now, but watch for any signs of distress. Emma approached the examination table where Gatsby lay, now alert and much improved. Thank you both for taking care of him. I don't know what I would have done if. She trailed off, her throat tightening unexpectedly. Logan stepped back, clearly preparing to make his exit. He should be fine. Persian cats are surprisingly resilient despite their fancy appearance. Something in his voice, a mixture of knowledge and genuine care, made Emma look at him more carefully. The storm outside had intensified, rain lashing against the windows with renewed fury. Where are you planning to go now? She asked suddenly. Logan shrugged, uncomfortable with her attention. Back to the bridge, I guess. Storm or no storm, it's home for now. Emma glanced out at the worsening weather, then back at this strange man who had saved her beloved pet using his last few dollars. The thought of him returning to sleep under a bridge while she took Gatsby back to her climate-controlled penthouse created an uncomfortable feeling she wasn't used to experiencing. I have a guest room, she said abruptly, surprising herself as much as Logan. You could stay there tonight. Just until the storm passes. Logan's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me. It's the least I can do, Emma continued, trying to sound casual though she'd never invited a stranger, let alone a homeless one, into her home before. It's not safe out there, and you did save Gatsby. Logan's expression hardened. I don't need charity, Miss Prescott. Especially not the guilty kind. It's not charity, Emma insisted, though they both knew it was. It's a thank you. One night, a hot shower, a warm meal. That's all. Dr. Mendez, who had been quietly observing this exchange, gently placed a hand on Logan's shoulder. The storm is supposed to get worse overnight. Flash flood warnings for the river areas, including the bridges. This information clearly affected Logan, though he tried not to show it. His meager possessions were still under that bridge. If the area flooded, he would lose everything. Just for tonight, Emma pressed, sensing his wavering resolve. Gatsby would probably appreciate saying thank you too. At the mention of the cat, Logan's expression softened slightly. He looked down at the Persian, who was watching him with what seemed like knowing blue eyes. Fine, he finally conceded. Just until the storm passes. And I leave first thing in the morning. Agreed, Emma said quickly, before either of them could reconsider. The taxi ride to Emma's building was possibly the most uncomfortable 20 minutes of her life. Logan sat stiffly beside her, staring out the window, while Gatsby meowed occasionally from his carrier on her lap. The contrast between her designer coat and his worn jacket seemed to fill the entire back seat with an invisible barrier. When they pulled up to the Millennium Tower, Logan's eyes widened slightly before he controlled his expression. Emma pretended not to notice as she paid the driver and led the way through the opulent lobby. Ms. Prescott. Good evening, the doorman greeted her, his professional smile faltering slightly when he saw Logan trailing behind her. Shall I call security to assist your guest? That won't be necessary, Thomas, Emma replied coolly. He's with me. The elevator ride to the penthouse was silent. Logan stood as far from Emma as the small space allowed, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. When the doors opened directly into her apartment, revealing the sprawling open-concept living area with its floor-to-ceiling windows and designer furniture, Logan visibly stiffened. The guest room is this way, Emma said, trying to act as if bringing homeless strangers to her penthouse was something she did regularly. She set Gatsby's carrier down and opened it, allowing the cat to cautiously step out and survey his familiar surroundings. Logan remained near the elevator. Nice place, he said flatly, making no move to follow her. Emma turned back, suddenly realizing how overwhelming her home must appear to someone who had been sleeping under a bridge. It's just an apartment, she said awkwardly. Sure. Just an apartment with a view half the city would kill for, Logan replied, his eyes taking in the custom kitchen with its marble countertops and the living room's plush sectional that probably cost more than a year's tuition at veterinary school. Gatsby broke the tension by approaching Logan and rubbing against his legs, a surprising show of affection from the normally reserved cat. "He likes you," Emma observed, genuinely surprised. "He's usually very particular about people." Logan crouched down to gently stroke the cat, his touch expert and caring. "Animals know when someone understands them," he said simply. Watching this interaction, Emma felt something shift inside her. This man, with his worn clothes and rough appearance, connected with Gatsby in a way few people ever had. It was a reminder that appearances, something she'd built her entire adult life around, could be deeply deceiving. "Are you hungry?" she asked, moving toward the kitchen. "I could order something." Logan straightened up, that guarded look returning to his face. "You don't need to feed me. The room is enough." "I'm ordering for myself anyway," Emma lied smoothly. "It's no trouble to get enough for two." Before Logan could object further, she pulled out her phone and quickly ordered from an upscale Italian restaurant that delivered. The awkward silence returned as they waited, broken only by Gatsby's occasional meows as he settled back into his territory. "The guest bathroom has everything you need for a shower," Emma finally said. "I can lend you some clothes that might fit. My ex left some things behind." Logan nodded stiffly. "Thank you." As he disappeared down the hallway with the borrowed clothes, Emma exhaled slowly, wondering what had possessed her to bring this stranger into her home. Yet watching Gatsby contentedly curling up on his favorite spot on the couch, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Outside, the storm raged on, while inside the penthouse, an even more unpredictable kind of tempest was brewing between two people from worlds that were never meant to collide. By the third day of Logan's stay, an unexpected routine had begun to form in Emma's penthouse. What had started as, "just until the storm passes," had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated. The historic storm had flooded large areas of the city, including the underpass where Logan had been living. His few possessions were gone, swept away by the rushing water. "The guest room is available until you figure out your next steps," Emma had offered, surprising herself with the sincerity in her voice. Logan had accepted with reluctance, his pride visibly battling with practicality. Now, as Emma returned from her office early that afternoon, she paused in the doorway, observing an unexpected scene. Logan was sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, carefully examining Gatsby's healing paw while the cat purred contentedly on a plush cushion. "The swelling is almost completely gone," Logan said without looking up, somehow sensing her presence. "He's healing faster than I expected." Emma set down her briefcase, slipping off her heels with a small sigh of relief. "That's good news. He seems more like himself today." "Cats are resilient," Logan replied, gently releasing Gatsby's paw. The Persian immediately stood and stretched before padding over to greet Emma, rubbing against her legs affectionately. She bent to scratch behind his ears, noting the improved brightness in his eyes. "You're really good with him." Logan shrugged, standing up and creating distance between them as he always did when she paid him a compliment. "It's just training." "It's more than that," Emma insisted, watching how Gatsby looked between them. "He trusts you." A shadow of a smile crossed Logan's face before disappearing. These brief glimpses of the person behind his guarded exterior fascinated Emma more than she cared to admit. "I made a vegetable soup," Logan said, changing the subject. "Hope that's okay. I figured it was better than letting the produce in your fridge go bad." Emma blinked in surprise. "You cook?" "Another survival skill," he answered with a hint of dryness. "The soup's nothing fancy." Emma followed him into the kitchen, watching as he moved comfortably around the space he'd clearly familiarized himself with. It struck her how different he looked after just a few days of proper rest and nutrition. His face had lost some of its hollowness, and his movements were more fluid, less defensive. "I appreciate you looking after Gatsby while I'm at work," she said, settling onto a bar stool at the counter. "I usually have to hire a professional sitter when I have long meetings." Logan ladled soup into a bowl for her. It's the least I can do for the room and board. Though I've been meaning to talk to you about that. Emma felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. You're ready to leave. I need to find a job, get back on my feet, he said firmly. I can't stay in your guest room indefinitely. It's not, right? Before Emma could respond, her phone buzzed with a news alert. She glanced down at the screen, frowning slightly. What is it? Logan asked. There's a homeless encampment near the river that was completely destroyed in the flooding, Emma replied, scanning the article. The shelter system is overwhelmed. Logan's expression darkened. I know some of those people. Emma watched him carefully. You're worried about them. Wouldn't you be? He challenged. Many of them have health issues, nowhere to go. His genuine concern for others despite his own precarious situation touched something in Emma. Most people in her circle were concerned primarily with their own advancement, their own problems. I could make a donation, she offered. Logan shook his head. Money helps, but it's not just about that. These are people who've fallen through every crack in the system. Emma set down her phone, struck by an idea. What if I hired you as Gatsby's caretaker while his paw heals? It would give you some income, a place to stay for a bit longer, and you could use your first paycheck to help your friends. Logan's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Gatsby doesn't need a full-time caretaker. His injury is minor. He seems happier with you around, Emma countered. I'm busy with work, and he gets lonely. It would be temporary, just until you find something more permanent. Logan studied her face, clearly searching for pity or condescension. Finding neither, he slowly nodded. All right. But I want a proper employment agreement. Standard wages, nothing inflated. Of course, Emma agreed quickly. I'll draw something up tomorrow. As they ate the surprisingly delicious soup, Emma carefully observed Logan. There was something fascinating about watching someone so knowledgeable and skilled navigating the uncertainty of his circumstances with such dignity. Later that evening, after Logan had retired to the guest room, Emma found herself scrolling through her phone contacts until she reached Dr. Mendez's number. The veterinarian had given it to her for follow-up questions about Gatsby's care. Dr. Mendez. It's Emma Prescott. I'm sorry to call after hours, but I had a question about Logan Hayes. The conversation that followed confirmed what Emma had begun to suspect. Logan had been on track to graduate with honors before the accident that claimed his parents. His professors had considered him exceptionally talented, particularly in emergency medicine. It's such a waste, Dr. Mendez said sadly. He had a bright future ahead of him. After hanging up, Emma sat on her balcony, looking out at the city lights. Below her, thousands of lives played out in apartments and on streets she rarely noticed. For the first time, she found herself wondering about those lives, about the thin line between security and disaster that she had never had to think about before. Inside, unbeknownst to her, Logan stood in the guest bathroom, staring at his reflection in the mirror. The face looking back at him was gradually transforming back into the person he used to be, and the realization filled him with equal parts hope and fear. Hope that he might reclaim some part of his former life, and fear of how quickly it could all disappear again. 2 weeks had passed since Logan had officially become Gatsby's caretaker. The arrangement had settled into a surprisingly comfortable routine. Emma would leave for work early each morning, returning in the evenings to find her apartment tidier than she'd left it and Gatsby healthier and more content than he'd been in months. Logan had used his first paycheck exactly as he'd said he would, buying supplies for his friends from the bridge community and helping them navigate the city's overwhelmed shelter system. Emma had watched from a distance as he distributed new sleeping bags and backpacks, struck by his leadership and the respect others showed him despite his own recent circumstances. That evening, Emma arrived home to find Logan sitting at her kitchen island, laptop open in front of him. She'd lent him the computer to check job listings, but had noticed he often used it to research veterinary topics, as if keeping his knowledge current. Gatsby's completely healed, Logan announced without preamble. The limp is gone, and he's back to jumping on furniture. Emma set down her briefcase, an unusual heaviness settling in her chest. That's good news. Yeah, Logan agreed, closing the laptop. Which means my job here is technically finished. The statement hung in the air between them. Emma busied herself pouring a glass of water, trying to sort through her unexpectedly complicated feelings. I've been thinking, she said finally, turning to face him. You shouldn't have had to leave school. Logan's expression immediately closed off. That's life sometimes. But it doesn't have to be, Emma pressed, moving closer. I've been doing some research. There are options for students who've had to leave due to financial hardship. Scholarships, special programs. I've looked into all that, Logan interrupted, a defensive edge creeping into his voice. The timing never worked out. Most deadlines had passed when my situation changed. Emma took a deep breath, stepping into territory she knew might be dangerous. What if I helped? I could cover your tuition until you got back on your feet. An investment in your future. The shift in Logan's demeanor was immediate and stark. His back straightened, his jaw tightened, and his eyes, which had gradually warmed over the past weeks, turned cold. An investment, he repeated, the word sharp on his tongue. Is that how you see people? As opportunities for return? Emma faltered, realizing her corporate vocabulary had betrayed her. That's not what I meant. I just want to help. I don't need your charity, Emma, Logan said, standing up. I'm not a project for you to fix. That's not what this is, she protested. You have real talent. Dr. Mendez confirmed it. It seems wrong that someone with your abilities isn't able to use them because of bad luck. Logan's eyes narrowed. You talked to Dr. Mendez about me? Behind my back. Emma realized her mistake too late. I was just trying to understand how I could help. You could have asked me, Logan cut in, his voice tight with controlled anger. But that's not how people like you operate, is it? You decide what's best for everyone else, because surely your money gives you that right. The accusation stung, partly because Emma recognized a kernel of truth in it. She was used to fixing problems with her resources, to being in control. Logan, I'm sorry. I should have talked to you first. But my offer stands, no strings attached. You could finish your degree, become the veterinarian you were meant to be. And then what? I'd owe you for the rest of my life? Logan shook his head. No thanks. I'll find my own way. Not everything has an ulterior motive, Emma said, frustration creeping into her voice. Sometimes people just want to help. People like you don't just help without expecting something in return, Logan countered. Maybe it's not money. Maybe it's gratitude, or the satisfaction of playing savior. Either way, I'm not interested. Emma felt her own temper rising. That's unfair. You don't know me well enough to make that judgment. Don't I? Logan challenged. 2 weeks of watching you work, seeing how you handle your business calls, how you talk about the people who work for you. Everything is a transaction to you, Emma. Everyone has a use or they don't. His words hit with unexpected force, touching a doubt Emma had carried privately for years. Was she really that cold? That calculating? That's not true, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Logan's expression softened slightly, seeing the impact of his words. Look, I appreciate what you've done for me. Giving me a place to stay, the job it helped. But I need to stand on my own 2 feet. By sleeping under a bridge again? Emma asked. How does that make sense? Because it's my choice, Logan said simply. My life, my decisions. Not yours to manage or direct, no matter how well-intentioned you might be. The fundamental disconnect between them had never been clearer. Emma, who had spent her adult life believing that problems existed to be solved with sufficient resources, couldn't understand Logan's rejection of a clear path forward. Logan, who valued his autonomy above comfort, couldn't accept help that felt like control. "I think it's time I moved on," Logan said finally, the anger draining from his voice, leaving only resolution. "I'll pack my things and be out by morning." Emma wanted to argue, to find the perfect words that would make him see reason, but she recognized the futility. Something fundamental had broken between them, a fragile trust she hadn't even realized had formed. "If that's what you want," she said stiffly, retreating behind the professional mask she wore like armor. After Logan disappeared into the guest room, Emma sank onto her sofa, unexpectedly close to tears. Gatsby jumped up beside her, nuzzling her hand as if sensing her distress. "I was just trying to help," she whispered to the cat. "Why is that so wrong?" But as she sat in her perfectly appointed living room, surrounded by all the things money could buy, Emma confronted an uncomfortable truth: perhaps her help wasn't as selfless as she'd believed. Perhaps Logan had seen something in her that she'd been unwilling to acknowledge, that her generosity came with invisible strings, expectations of gratitude and compliance that she'd never articulated even to herself. For the first time in years, Emma Prescott found herself questioning not just a business decision, but the very foundation of how she moved through the world. The morning after their argument, Emma woke to find Logan gone. The guest room was immaculate, bed perfectly made, borrowed clothes neatly folded, not a trace of his presence remaining except for a brief note on the kitchen counter: "Thank you for everything. Take care of Gatsby." Emma stood in her spacious kitchen, coffee growing cold in her hand, staring at the note. She'd gotten exactly what she expected. Logan had left just as he said he would, yet the emptiness of the apartment felt strangely amplified, as if it had somehow grown larger overnight. "This is ridiculous," she muttered to herself. "He was only here for 2 weeks." Gatsby meowed plaintively from his perch on the window seat, looking expectantly toward the guest room door. "He's not coming back," Emma told the cat, who stared at her with accusatory blue eyes before turning his attention back to the window, tail twitching. Emma tried to fall back into her normal routine. She dressed for work, answered emails, attended virtual meetings. But her focus kept drifting to small reminders of Logan, the soup recipe he'd written down and magnetized to her refrigerator, the special way he'd arranged Gatsby's toys to encourage exercise of his healing paw, the plant on her balcony that had been dying until he quietly revived it. Most concerning was Gatsby's behavior. The cat prowled restlessly around the apartment, checking the guest room repeatedly, and refused his favorite treats. When Emma tried to pet him, he tolerated her touch briefly before slipping away, as if disappointed she wasn't someone else. After 3 days of this, Emma found herself once again on the phone with Dr. Mendez, this time to schedule a checkup for Gatsby. "He's not eating properly," she explained. "And he seems depressed." "Cats can form strong attachments," Dr. Mendez replied. "Bring him in this afternoon. I have a cancellation at 3. At the clinic, Emma sat nervously in the examination room while Dr. Mendez checked Gatsby thoroughly. "Physically, he's in excellent condition," the veterinarian concluded. "Logan did a remarkable job with his rehabilitation. The paw has healed perfectly." Emma nodded, both relieved and somehow disappointed. Part of her had hoped for a medical explanation for Gatsby's behavior, something concrete she could solve. "So why isn't he eating? Why does he keep looking for?" Emma trailed off. "For Logan?" Dr. Mendez suggested gently. Emma nodded, embarrassed by the emotion that unexpectedly tightened her throat. Dr. Mendez stroked Gatsby thoughtfully. "Animals form attachments based on how people make them feel. Logan has a natural gift with them. It's what would have made him an exceptional veterinarian." The past tense stung Emma. "Would have?" Dr. Mendez sighed. "I saw him yesterday, actually. He came by the clinic looking for work, cleaning, filing, anything. I wish I could hire him, but our budget is stretched thin as it is." Emma's heart sank. "So he's back on the streets?" "He didn't say, but I suspect so." Dr. Mendez hesitated, then added, "He asked about Gatsby, you know. Wanted to make sure he was doing well." The information settled uncomfortably in Emma's chest. Even after their argument, even after she'd offended his pride, Logan had still cared enough to check on Gatsby's well-being. "I was trying to help him," Emma said quietly. "I offered to pay for him to go back to school, but he got so angry. Said he didn't want to be my charity case." Dr. Mendez nodded understanding. "Logan's pride is all he has left. When you lose everything, family, home, future, sometimes your dignity is the only thing you can control." Emma had never considered this perspective. In her world, accepting help when offered was logical, practical. But perhaps when help was all you could receive and never give, the equation changed. "I made a mess of things," Emma admitted, more to herself than to the doctor. "You were trying to do the right thing," Dr. Mendez said kindly. "But sometimes helping isn't about fixing someone's problems. It's about supporting them while they fix their own." The wisdom in those words followed Emma home, echoing in her mind as she set Gatsby's carrier down in her too-quiet apartment. The cat immediately resumed his vigilant post by the window, watching the city below as if expecting Logan to appear. Emma moved to stand beside him, looking down at the streets she normally paid little attention to. Somewhere out there, Logan was trying to rebuild his life with nothing but his intelligence and determination. The thought made her deeply uncomfortable in a way her usual charitable donations never had. That evening, instead of working through dinner as usual, Emma sat at her computer researching homelessness in Boston, not the statistics she might have looked at before, but the personal stories, the systemic issues, the barriers to re-entry into stable housing and employment. She read accounts of people with advanced degrees, successful careers, loving families, who had lost everything through medical emergencies, economic downturns, or personal tragedies. People just like Logan. Around midnight, Gatsby abandoned his window vigil and jumped onto her lap, interrupting her reading. For the first time since Logan's departure, the cat settled against her, purring softly. "I get it now," Emma whispered, stroking his silky fur. "We both miss him." The admission was surprisingly liberating. This wasn't about charity or investment or even guilt. Somewhere along the way, Logan Hayes had become important to her, had challenged her worldview in ways that both unsettled and intrigued her. The next morning, Emma called her assistant and cleared her schedule for the day. She had research to do, calls to make, and a plan to formulate one that respected Logan's dignity while still potentially offering a path forward. It wouldn't be easy, and success wasn't guaranteed, but for the first time in years, Emma was approaching a problem without assuming her money could simply make it disappear. As she worked, she glanced occasionally at Gatsby, who had resumed his watchful position by the window. "We'll find him," she promised the cat. "But this time, we'll do it right." 2 weeks after their argument, Logan stood outside Boston Night Vets in clothes he'd managed to keep relatively clean despite his return to the streets. He'd found temporary shelter at a church program that offered showers and laundry services, but stable housing remained elusive without steady income. "You're sure this is all you need?" he asked Dr. Mendez, who had just handed him an envelope with cash payment for the odd jobs he'd done around the clinic, organizing supplies, cleaning kennels, and filing paperwork. "For now, yes," she replied with a smile that seemed oddly knowing. "But I might have something more substantial soon. Keep checking in." Logan nodded gratefully. The work was sporadic, but it was something. More importantly, it kept him connected to the veterinary world he loved, even if only on the periphery. "How's Gatsby doing?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Has Emma brought him back for any follow-ups?" "He's physically fine," Dr. Mendez said. "Though I think he misses you." Logan looked away, unwilling to admit how often he thought about the white Persian cat and, reluctantly, his owner. "He's got everything he needs." Dr. Mendez looked like she wanted to say more but was interrupted by the front desk phone. "I should get that. Take care of yourself, Logan." He slipped the envelope into his pocket and headed outside, planning his day. The cash would cover a cheap meal and maybe a night at the hostel where he could get a proper night's sleep. Tomorrow he'd check back at the temp agency that occasionally found him day labor jobs. "Logan?" The familiar voice stopped him in his tracks. He turned slowly to find Emma standing a few feet away, Gatsby's carrier in her hand. She looked different, less polished somehow, in casual clothes with her hair pulled back simply. "What are you doing here?" he asked, immediately defensive. "Gatsby's annual checkup," she replied, nodding toward the carrier. Inside, he could see the cat looking at him with those intelligent blue eyes. "Right." Logan shifted uncomfortably. "Well, I was just leaving." "Actually," Emma said quickly, "Dr. Mendez asked if you could assist with something. A special case she thought you might have insights on." Logan frowned. Dr. Mendez hadn't mentioned anything about a special case, and the timing seemed suspiciously convenient. "What kind of case?" She said she'd explain inside. Emma held the door open. "Please." It would mean a lot to her. Against his better judgment, Logan followed Emma back into the clinic. The receptionist smiled at him with unusual warmth as they passed, heightening his suspicion. Dr. Mendez greeted them in the back office rather than an examination room. "Thank you both for coming. Please, sit down." Logan remained standing. "What's this about?" The veterinarian exchanged a glance with Emma before speaking. "The clinic has received a grant to expand our services and hire additional staff. Specifically, we're developing a community outreach program for pet owners who can't afford regular care." "That's great," Logan said cautiously. "The grant includes funding for an assistant position," Dr. Mendez continued. "Someone with veterinary knowledge who can help with basic exams, education, and coordinating care. I'd like to offer you the job." Logan blinked in surprise. "Me?" "You have the training, the compassion, and the unique perspective of understanding hardship firsthand," Dr. Mendez explained. "It's part-time to start, with health benefits, and includes a scholarship component for you to complete your degree." Logan's initial excitement froze as realization dawned. He turned to Emma. "This grant. It's from you, isn't it?" Emma met his gaze directly. "The funding comes from my foundation, yes. But the program was Dr. Mendez's idea, and the hiring decision is entirely hers." Logan's jaw tightened. "So this was your plan all along? Create a job specifically for me?" "Not exactly," Emma replied. "After our disagreement, I did some research on sustainable ways to address both homelessness and veterinary care access. Dr. Mendez and I developed this program together, but it will continue regardless of whether you take the position." Logan looked between the two women, struggling with conflicting emotions. The opportunity was exactly what he needed, a chance to use his skills, earn a living wage, and potentially return to his studies. But the connection to Emma complicated everything. "I don't want special treatment," he said firmly. "It's not special treatment," Dr. Mendez insisted. "I need someone with your specific background for this position. Your experience on the streets gives you insight most veterinary professionals lack." Emma set Gatsby's carrier down and took a step toward Logan. "I was wrong before," she said quietly. "I tried to solve your problems my way, without understanding what you actually needed. This is different. This program will help hundreds of animals and their owners, whether you're involved or not." Logan studied her face, searching for signs of condescension or pity, but found only sincerity. Still, doubt lingered. "Why are you doing this?" Emma considered her answer carefully. "Because meeting you changed something in me. It made me realize that my money is only valuable if it creates real opportunities, not just temporary fixes." The honesty in her voice caught Logan off guard. He turned away, needing space to process this unexpected development. Dr. Mendez handed him a folder. "Here's the official job description, salary details, and program outline. Take some time to think about it. The position is yours if you want it, but we'll find someone else if you don't." Logan accepted the folder, his mind racing. "I need to think about this." "Of course," Dr. Mendez said. "Meanwhile, would you mind taking a quick look at Gatsby? He's been acting strangely, and I'd value your opinion." The request effectively shifted the focus away from the job offer, giving Logan something concrete to concentrate on. He nodded, grateful for the distraction. In the examination room, Logan carefully checked Gatsby, who purred loudly the moment Logan touched him. The cat seemed perfectly healthy but unusually affectionate, rubbing against Logan's hands repeatedly. "He really did miss you," Emma observed softly. Logan gave a half-smile despite himself. "Cats are particular about their people." "So I've noticed," Emma agreed. After a pause, she added, "I missed you too, you know. Both of us did. The apartment feels empty without you." Logan looked up, surprised by her candor. "Emma I'm not asking you to come back," she clarified quickly. "I just wanted you to know that you made a difference in our lives. Whatever you decide about the job." The simple statement touched Logan more deeply than any grand gesture could have. For the first time, he felt truly seen by Emma, not as a project or a charity case, but as a person who had value beyond what he could offer or achieve. As he finished examining Gatsby, Logan felt the weight of the job offer folder in his pocket. It represented more than employment, it was a potential bridge back to the life he'd thought lost forever. The fact that Emma was connected to it still complicated things, but perhaps not in the way he'd initially thought. "I'll let you know about the job," he said finally. "After I've had time to read through everything." Emma nodded, accepting his need for space. That's all anyone can ask. As Logan left the clinic, his steps were lighter than they had been in months. The future remained uncertain, but for the first time since losing everything, real possibility stretched before him, possibility that had come, ironically, from the last person he would have expected to understand his struggle. Behind him, Emma watched his departure with Gatsby cradled in her arms, hoping she had finally found a way to help that honored both Logan's dignity and his dreams. 1 month into his new position at Boston Night Vets, Logan stood in the clinic's newly renovated community outreach space, reviewing supplies for the upcoming weekend clinic. The room, once used for storage, had been transformed into a welcoming area with basic examination equipment, educational materials, and a small pharmacy for common medications. "Everything ready for Saturday?" Dr. Mendez asked, joining him. Logan nodded, checking items off his clipboard. "We're expecting at least 15 families based on the sign-ups. I added extra flea and tick preventatives since we're seeing a lot of those cases lately." "Good thinking," she approved. "The program's growing faster than we anticipated." "That's largely thanks to you, you know." Logan shrugged, still uncomfortable with praise. "People just need to know help is available." In truth, the outreach program had been more successful than anyone expected. Logan's unique background allowed him to connect with people who typically avoided veterinary care due to cost or fear of judgment. His approach, practical, respectful, and educational, had quickly earned trust in communities normally suspicious of institutional assistance. The clinic door chimed, and Logan glanced up to see Emma entering with a cardboard box. He felt the now familiar conflicted reaction to her presence, a mixture of gratitude, lingering wariness, and something else he wasn't ready to name. "Delivery for the community clinic," she announced, setting down the box. "Children's books about pet care that can be given to families. The publisher donated them after I made some calls." "That's perfect," Dr. Mendez said enthusiastically. "Education for the kids while parents are learning about care options." Logan opened the box, examining one of the colorful books. "These are actually good practical information, not just cute stories." Emma smiled, clearly pleased by his approval. "I had a children's literacy expert review them for age appropriateness and content." Their interaction had evolved into a careful professional relationship. Emma had kept her promise about maintaining distance from clinic operations, visiting only occasionally to drop off donations or discuss the program with Dr. Mendez. She never mentioned Logan's personal circumstances or referenced their previous argument, focusing instead on the work itself. "How's Gatsby?" Logan asked, as he always did when they crossed paths. "Missing his favorite person, but otherwise good," Emma replied with her usual light tone that somehow acknowledged their history without dwelling on it. Dr. Mendez excused herself to take a phone call, leaving them alone for the first time in weeks. "The program's going well," Emma commented, breaking the slightly awkward silence. "Dr. Mendez says you've already helped over 50 animals." "It's a start," Logan acknowledged. "But there's so much more need out there." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "I've been thinking about that. If this model works, it could be replicated in other clinics around the city." "It only works with the right people involved," Logan pointed out. "You need veterinary staff who understand the challenges these pet owners face." "People like you," Emma said simply. Logan felt his defenses rise slightly, then consciously lowered them. Emma wasn't trying to control or direct him anymore, she was acknowledging his value to the program. "I've been meaning to thank you," he said, surprising them both. "Not just for the job, but for doing it this way, creating something that helps others, not just me." Emma's expression softened. "I should be thanking you. You made me see things I was blind to before." This quiet exchange marked a turning point in their tentative rebuilding of trust. For the first time since their argument, they were speaking as equals, each acknowledging the other's contribution. "I started my scholarship classes last week," Logan offered, sharing something personal for the first time in months. Emma's face brightened. "That's wonderful. How does it feel to be back?" "Strange," he admitted. "Good strange, but still strange. I'm older than most students now, and my perspective is different." "Different can be valuable," Emma observed. Logan nodded, then hesitated before asking, "Would you want to get coffee sometime? To discuss expanding the program, I mean." The invitation hung between them, professional on the surface but significant in what it represented, Logan reaching out voluntarily. "I'd like that," Emma replied, careful not to overreact to this small but meaningful step. After Emma left, Logan returned to preparing for the weekend clinic, his mind working through ideas for program expansion. The scholarship component of his position allowed him to take 2 classes per semester while working part-time, a perfect balance that gave him purpose without overwhelming him. Within 3 years, he could complete his veterinary degree. That evening, Logan sat in his small but clean studio apartment, affordable with his new salary, studying for his pathology course. The modest space was a far cry from Emma's luxury penthouse, but it was his, earned through his own work. On the wall hung his framed acceptance letter back to the veterinary program, a symbol of the future he was reclaiming. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma, "Coffee tomorrow at 2. There's a place near the clinic called Rosie's." Logan smiled slightly, typing back, "See you there." The following afternoon, they met at the cozy cafe, awkwardness gradually melting away as they discussed concrete ideas for expanding the community veterinary program. Emma had brought research on similar initiatives in other cities, while Logan shared insights from the front lines. "What if we created a training program specifically for veterinary students interested in community medicine?" Emma suggested, energized by their brainstorming. "Like a specialized track?" Logan considered. "That could work, especially if it included mentorship from people who've experienced hardship firsthand." "Exactly." Emma leaned forward excitedly. "We could develop a curriculum that combines clinical skills with cultural competency and social services knowledge." As they talked, Logan realized something had fundamentally changed between them. They were now partners in a shared vision, each bringing different strengths and perspectives. Emma's business acumen and resources complemented his practical experience and understanding of community needs. "I've been thinking about a name for the expanded initiative," Emma said, somewhat hesitantly. "What about Second Chance Veterinary Program?" Logan considered it, understanding the double meaning. "Second chances are important," he agreed quietly. "For animals and people." Their eyes met in a moment of mutual recognition of how far they'd both come from that rainy night when a lost cat had connected their worlds. "To second chances, then," Emma said, raising her coffee cup in a small toast. Logan tapped his cup against hers. "To second chances." Outside the cafe window, Boston continued its busy pace, unaware that two people from vastly different circumstances had found common ground in their shared determination to make a difference, one pet, one family, one second chance at a time. 1 year later, Logan stood at the edge of the stage in his graduation cap and gown, scanning the audience until he spotted Emma in the 5th row. She gave him a small wave and an encouraging smile, Gatsby visible in a specialized pet carrier beside her. The Persian cat had somehow received special permission to attend the ceremony, undoubtedly due to Emma's influence and his status as the unofficial mascot of the Second Chance veterinary program. When Logan's name was called, a notable cheer rose from a section of the audience where Dr. Mendez sat with several staff members from the clinic and families from the community outreach program. As he crossed the stage to receive his veterinary medicine certificate, Logan reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought him to this moment. In just 1 year, the Second Chance program had expanded to 3 clinics across Boston, serving over 500 families and their pets. What had begun as a small community outreach initiative had grown into a model program being studied by veterinary schools nationwide. Logan's unique background had proven invaluable, allowing him to bridge worlds that rarely connected meaningfully. After the ceremony, Emma made her way through the crowd, Gatsby's carrier in hand. "Congratulations, Dr. Hayes," she said warmly. "Gatsby insisted on being here for your big day." Logan smiled, bending down to peer at the cat who had changed everything. "Thanks for coming, buddy. I wouldn't be here without you." "The program wouldn't exist without either of you," Dr. Mendez added, joining them. "Logan, we have a surprise for you. Can you join us at the clinic in an hour?" Logan agreed, curiosity piqued. After saying goodbye to former classmates and professors, he drove to Boston Night Vets in the used car he'd purchased 3 months earlier, another milestone in his rebuilt life. When he arrived, the clinic's lights were on despite being officially closed for the day. Emma's car was already in the parking lot, along with several others he recognized. Puzzled, he entered to find the waiting room transformed with decorations and a banner reading, "Congratulations, Dr. Hayes." Surprise, came the collective shout as staff members, volunteers, and several families from the program emerged from behind the reception desk. Logan stood speechless, overwhelmed by the unexpected celebration. Amid handshakes and congratulations, Dr. Mendez called for everyone's attention. "Today we celebrate not just Logan's graduation, but also the official opening of Second Chance Community Veterinary Clinic," she announced proudly. "Our very own independent facility dedicated to serving pets and families in need." She pulled a cloth from the wall, revealing architectural plans for a standalone clinic. "Thanks to the success of our program and continued support from the Prescott Foundation, construction begins next month on a facility that will include a full-service veterinary hospital, education center, and temporary housing for pets whose owners are in crisis." Logan looked at Emma in astonishment. She stepped forward, clearly emotional. "The board of directors unanimously voted to name you as the clinic's medical director," she said. "If you'll accept the position." A chorus of approving voices filled the room. Families whose pets Logan had treated, volunteers who had worked alongside him, and colleagues who had witnessed his dedication all nodded enthusiastically. "I don't know what to say," Logan managed, genuinely stunned by the offer. "Say yes," called Mike, the older homeless man who had shared the bridge with Logan during his darkest days. Now employed as a facility manager for the program, Mike had been one of Logan's greatest success stories. Logan looked around at the community that had formed around a simple idea that everyone deserved quality care for their animal companions, regardless of their circumstances. What had begun with one act of kindness on a rainy night had grown into something that would help countless people and pets. "Yes," he said finally. "Of course, yes." The room erupted in applause. As people began mingling and enjoying the celebration, Emma moved to Logan's side, Gatsby purring in her arms. "Did you know about this?" Logan asked her. "The board made the decision," Emma replied with a smile. "Though I might have suggested your name." Their relationship had evolved gradually over the past year, from cautious professional association to genuine friendship and eventually to something deeper. Each step had been taken slowly, with mutual respect for the very different worlds they came from and the unique challenges those differences presented. "There's something else," Emma said quietly. "The clinic will include an apartment for the medical director. It's not a penthouse, but it's convenient to work." Logan understood the unspoken question. They had been carefully navigating their personal relationship, both aware of the complex power dynamics at play. "Are you asking me to move in with you?" "I'm asking if you'd consider us moving in together there or somewhere else," Emma clarified. "Gatsby has strong opinions about us living under the same roof." Looking down at the cat who had first brought them together, Logan felt the beautiful symmetry of the moment. "What do you think, Gatsby? Should we give it a try?" The Persian cat stretched lazily in Emma's arms, appearing completely satisfied with this development. Around them, the celebration continued, a living testament to how one small act of compassion could ripple outward, transforming not just two lives but an entire community. Later that evening, as the party wound down, Logan and Emma stood outside the clinic, looking up at the stars barely visible through Boston's city lights. "If you had told me a year ago that this is where we'd end up," Logan said, shaking his head in wonder. "Sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected places," Emma replied. "I was so focused on success, on controlling everything in my life. I never would have chosen this path, but now I can't imagine any other." "Me either," Logan agreed, thinking of all the twists and turns that had brought them here, from the bridge to the penthouse, from stranger to friend to partner. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Mendez approached with a small gift box. "One more thing for the new medical director," she said, handing it to Logan. Inside was a custom ID badge with his name and new title, along with a small photo of Gatsby attached to the corner. "He's the real founder of the program," Dr. Mendez explained with a smile. "We thought he deserved recognition." The simple gesture brought everything full circle. A lost cat, a homeless student, and a lonely millionaire, 3 lives that should never have intersected but somehow created something beautiful when they did. "Let's go home," Emma said softly, her hand finding Logan's. "All 3 of us." As they walked to her car, Logan realized that home was no longer about a physical place, not a bridge, not a penthouse, not even the new clinic apartment. Home was the connection they had built, the purpose they had found together, and the community that had grown around them. From the carrier, Gatsby watched the city pass by, the same streets he had once traversed alone on that fateful stormy night. The cat who had escaped through a window and fallen from grace had, in his own way, orchestrated one of the most unlikely and beautiful second chances Boston had ever seen.